Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the temporary Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, Phyrexia All Will Be One is now completely spoiled, and yeah, we've got a perfect look at all the cards in the set. So on this episode, I'm going to be taking you through the budget cards that you should be considering picking up right now. And a quick reminder that in the description below, you'll find the card list link to the cards I'm talking about on this episode. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. So let's start things off with Cankerbloom, a fantastic new card, a 3/2 for just 2 mana, 1 and a green, has pay 1, sacrifice it, choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. Yeah, this does a ton of work for you. It is a great card. Again, literally a 3-power creature for just 2 mana to start off with. That is some fantastic utility. Sacrificing it, destroy an artifact or enchantment, incredibly relevant. And proliferate, very relevant for certain decks out there, whether that's a Super Friends deck that has a lot of planeswalkers with loyalty counters, or a deck that focuses on maybe creatures with ++1 counters, or maybe your opponents having -1/-1 counters on their creatures, or poison counters. There's a lot of different potential for this. It's just a great utility, again, card when it comes to just, hey, taking out some artifacts or enchantments, or yeah, just being a low-to-the-ground creature with a good amount of power. So yeah, this is like a Swiss Army knife of a creature that can help you out in a lot of situations, and I definitely think there's a lot of decks out there that are going to want this one. And sticking with green, Tyvar's Stand is a fantastic card, an instant for X and a green. It says, target creature control gets +X/+X and gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is a hyper-efficient way of protecting a creature. Again, you can just spend a single mana, just a single green. You don't have to put anything into that X if you don't want to, so you don't need to pump that creature if you just want to protect it, again, from a spell or ability for hexproof, or again, maybe a Wrath with that indestructibility. So yeah, this can protect a creature on a lot of fronts. On top of that, though, yeah, if you want to just pump a creature a ton out of nowhere, you can. You can dump a lot of mana into that X. Again, yeah, if you got a creature that maybe is a Voltron commander, you can pump it a lot, maybe the amount that you need to actually take an opponent out. So again, this is a lot of versatility, not just a protection spell, but also a pump effect that can be game-ending. Moving on. Okay, I'm very sorry for bringing up this art again, but basically Crawling Chorus is a fantastic new card with some creepy art, but yeah, a great card for a lot of decks out there. A 1/1 Phyrexian Horror for a white mana that has Toxic 1, and also when it dies, you get a 1/1 Phyrexian Might that also has Toxic 1, and it can't block. So basically, it's a low-to-the-ground toxic creature, so if you have, proliferate effects or other toxic or poison effects, infect effects in your deck, it's a great card to get down early. But yeah, mainly for Aristocrat-style decks, this is going to be an incredible card. Basically, another Doomed Traveler with some extra, again, keywords on these creatures that can be relevant. So yeah, I can see a lot of decks out there. Again, Aristocrat-style decks are incredibly popular. Sacrifice decks, decks that want to utilize creatures to the maximum, getting them in your graveyard, out of your graveyard, and again and again and again, taking advantage of death triggers. Crawling Chorus, I think, is going to see a ton of play. And again, we're going to be seeing that creepy art in a lot of places. Next up, how about Serum Snare? It's an instant for 1 in a blue that's going to bounce target non-land permanent back to its owner's hand. And on top of that, if that permanent had mana value 3 or less, you proliferate, which again means you choose any number of permanents in our players, then give each another kind of counter already there. So at a base level, this does, what a 2-mana bounce spell does. You bounce a non-land permanent. There are other variations of this kind of effect on other 2-mana blue instants that basically say, hey, you get to bounce something and also this. This one is more specific where, hey, if you bounce something that's small, great, you get to proliferate as well. And there are certain decks out there that absolutely love proliferating. Again, like I mentioned before, ++1 counter builds, -1/-1 counter builds, infect builds that, give up poison counters. And also, of course, planeswalker builds as well. So yeah, if you're running one of those things and you need a bounce spell, definitely make sure you're considering this one. And speaking of certain builds, and a very good card for those, Infectious Bite, an instant for 1 in a green. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Yeah, green is getting more and more of these effects to deal with creatures. Some of them are fight effects. This one just is, hey, you know what? I'm not actually fighting, I'm just dishing out damage based on my power to another creature. But on top of that, of course, I am also going to be giving out poison counters to every single one of my opponents. That is 3 poison counters for just 2 mana. And of course, if you're already running, maybe an infect deck or a deck that deals with, toxic now or other kinds of ways to get poison, or just a deck that's going to be proliferating quite a bit, this can be another avenue of victory to you, on top of this being a great removal spell for, again, a deck that has good amounts of powerful creatures. Next up, Feed the Infection is a reprint in a way of some cards that see a decent amount of play with Ambition's Cost in Ancient Craving, with a little addition to this one as well. A sorcery for 3 and a black that says you draw 3 cards and lose 3 life, which again is the exact same thing as Ambition's Cost in Ancient Craving, which do see a decent amount of play, but of course on top of that, Corrupted, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses 3 life. So this is just strictly better, essentially, right? It does not, have any downside to it compared to the other ones. This one just has a nice addition. So if you happen to be playing, yourself a deck that gives out poison counters, you can also just drain your opponents with this card as well. Share the pain with them. Or, if you're just playing, with a deck that does not utilize poison counters, if you happen to be at the same table as another player who is, you can also drain opponents who happen to be getting poison counters from them too. So yeah, this is just strictly a better version of those other 2 cards, which again see a decent amount of play already. Moving on, how about Kinzu of the Bleak Coven, a commander that can also be great in the 99 of some decks out there. A 5/4 flying Phyrexian vampire for 4 and a black, so already a good amount of power and an evasive power for just 5 mana. But also on top of that, whenever another non-token creature controlled dies, you can pay 2 life and exile. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except say 1/1 and has toxic 1. So basically, hey, you can get extra copies of your creatures. Yes, you have to exile the card. You can still get whatever death trigger you want, though, because it is not a replacement effect. When it dies, you pay the 2 life and exile it, so it still has died. So you can take advantage of death triggers again with this. You can take advantage of ETB triggers again with this. And yeah, you can do a lot of work with that additional toxic given to your copy of your creature. Again, it's just a 1/1, but there are different ways that you can really play around with that. There are different ways that you can really take advantage of that. Maybe a creature with double strike, maybe a creature that again has some evasion to get through that toxic. There's a lot of potential for this with certain kinds of strategies that might already want to be sacrificing creatures, again, like aristocrat style decks. Speaking of which, Vran Executioner Thane, a 2/2 Phyrexian vampire for 1 and a black, says whenever one or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This ability triggers only once each turn. Now, yes, that is a big downside to this card. That limitation on this ability triggers only once each turn is a pretty big limitation. That being said, if you are in a aristocrat style strategy that is okay with sacrificing creatures on multiple turns, and yeah, there are plenty of different ways to do that. There's plenty of different ways, to sacrifice creatures with, a sacrifice out like maybe like a Viserys Seer. If you're willing to just, spread out your sacrifice effects, you can get other death triggers as well, like Zulaport Cutthroat with that. But also, this one can trigger every single turn, draining all of your opponents, again, if you've got enough creature fodder, for a total of 8 life lost, and you gain 8 life as well, just for this low to the ground creature being on the table, and also you sacrificing some creature fodder consistently throughout the game. You can drain your opponents very quickly with something like this. Next up, though, how about an equipment that can do a lot of work for you with Bladehold War Whip that costs 1 red and a white, and it says for Mirrodin, when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 red rebel creature token, and this is attached to it. On top of that, equip abilities you activate if other equipment costs 1 less to activate. Equip creature has double strike. It's got an equip cost of 3 red and a white. So double strike on a creature can be fantastic. I mean, basically this just comes into play on a 2/2. It's going to be hitting for 4 damage with that double strike. But yeah, maybe if you've got a Voltron-style commander that cares about equipment, you're going to help it hit twice as hard, and perhaps more importantly, you're also going to reduce the cost of your other equip abilities by 1. So yeah, if you've got other equip abilities that just even cost 1, those are now free. The rest have a big reduction that can really save you a ton of mana throughout the game. So yeah, this can do a lot of work for you, especially in equipment style strategies. Finally, I want to point out a land to consider for certain decks out there with Mirrex, which is a sphere that can tap for a colorless, and it can tap to add 1 mana of any color, but only if it enters the battlefield this turn. So right away, this can basically be a great way to fix the mana for that turn that this comes down when you need it. But also on top of that, pay 3, tap, create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with toxic 1, and this creature can't block. So this can be a great land to help you just make some creature fodder for certain decks. Or yeah, if you really want to play around with that toxic, really want to have ways to give your opponent poison counters to basically have another avenue to victory. Maybe you've got proliferate effects already in your deck. Or again, yeah, if you just need more creature bodies on the field for, maybe an aristocrat style strategy, this is something to consider. Again, it's kind of like a care keep with a little additional flexibility to it. Again, with that, adding 1 mana of any color, but also giving you those creatures that can just be deadly on their own as well. And with that, this episode is coming to an end. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.